All right. So we are studying Shmuel I, chapter 20, verse 35. We are in the midst of an haftarah, a famous haftarah, Machar Chodesh. It's an haftarah that we read on Erev Rosh Chodesh. Bli tarikh. So today is Yud Zayin Shvat. Yud Zayin Shvat. Tav Shin Pei. So, yeah, we lost one.
What do you mean, Bli tarikh?
No. I always say the date.
You always announce
the date.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we had a plan. Yonatan rather had a plan, and the plan was to figure out if David is safe with his father Shaul, or does he need to run away. And the plan was fairly simple. David would hide in the field, and Yonatan is going to the special Rosh Chodesh meal. And there are 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, so it's 2 meals, 2 days. And David, there is a no-show, and hopefully there will be a reaction from the king, whether he doesn't care, or it's okay, or it's terrible and he'll throw a fit. And then he will know if David is safe or not. And then he will go to the field, and they constructed a whole signal where he's going to come with a lad, and Yonatan was going to come with a lad and will shoot 3 arrows, and the lad is going to go get them, and he will scream after him that he will scream one of two things. Either will say the arrow is from away from you, go further to get it. That will be a signal for David to run away. Or the arrow is closer, please come back. And he will, with that, David will know what to do. And of course, the main question is why the signals. I mean, they're going to meet anyway in the field. Why not just go to the field and, hug and kiss and tell them, listen, you got to go or you can stay. So we mentioned the basic explanation that he didn't want to talk about his father. He didn't want to talk Lashon Hara. He didn't want to. There is a kibud av va'em, honor the parent situation. So if the father is not going to be nice about it, which ended up being the case. He would have to say something which will put his father in a bad light, which he didn't want. So he created some sort of a signal, a sign, and then when they met, which we'll read today, they didn't really discuss it much, and but they understood what needs to be done. So David went to the field, hid in the field. Yonatan went to the meal. The first day his father didn't say anything. Excuse me. The second day he said, what with David? So Yonatan told him that David was called in a rush to go home and see his brothers for their feast. And that Yonatan allowed him to do it. So Shaul was very, very upset and embarrassed Yonatan in front of everybody and said that you're choosing your death wish, so to speak. You're choosing to rebel against me with someone who's going to take my spot. And he hit him with a spear, with the shaft of the spear, but he hit him, and it made a scene. So Yonatan understood that there is nothing to talk about, and David has to run. That's where we stopped. There are like seven or eight psukim, 7 psukim till the end. We're going to go through them. They're basically the execution of the plan. Once Yonatan knew what to do, he went to the field, and what happened, and then we're going to turn our attention to the Kabbalistic view of this whole story, answering another angle about the arrows and the whole signal and the whole. There are a lot of extra details that seem not natural. Not. Who cares if it was? Why is the meal of Rosh Chodesh here? What's the connection here? There are several things. We'll see. Anyway, so Vayiba Boker. So after the scene on the second day of Rosh Chodesh, so on the third day, which is second day of the new month, Vayiba Boker Vayetze Yonatan, which was the third day since they last saw David. Vayiba Boker. So in the morning, Vayetze Yonatan Asadeh lemoed David v'nar katon imo. So he woke up and he went to the field and he brought a boy, a lad with him. A young child, actually. It's more of a not as much of a teenager. I think it's younger than that. Reason being, especially because David was under great danger at the moment. He didn't want anybody to know, so he brought a kid that will not really understand much of what's happening, even if he happened to see David. ויאמר לנערו רוץ מצאנה את החיצים אשר אנוכי מורה, הנער רץ והוא ירה החצי לאווירו. So he shot one arrow and then told the kid, please run and find the arrows that I'm shooting. And as the lad was running, he shot another arrow past him. Okay? And the nar, vayavo anar ad makom hachetzi asher hara Yonatan. So the lad reached that spot where the arrow was resting on the ground. He called out to him and say, the arrow is beyond you. So signaling, giving the signal to David, who was there in the field listening, giving him the signal that there is a big problem and he has to run away. So as the lad sort of, I guess, was confused a little bit because he was standing right at where the arrow is, and here his master is shouting that the arrow is away. So he was, I guess he was a little bit unsure of what to do. So he told him, hurry up, don't just stand there, please collect the arrows. It's written only one chetzi because it actually was one, it wasn't more, and actually it was three. It was three. So the Radak says, it seems before that he just shot one, but he really shot three. So that's why it's written one way and it's read another way. That's what the Radak is saying. So he basically wanted to get rid of the kid because he wanted to meet David and talk to him and say proper goodbye. That will be the last time that David and Yonatan are seeing each other. So he screamed at the lad and told him, collect the arrows. And he brought those arrows to him. The lad didn't know obviously what's going on because it was a code language, but Yonatan and David did know. So Yonatan gave all of his stuff to the kid. That was his. He was a caddy, that was his job. So he gave him, I guess, the bow, the arrows, whatever else he had that needed carrying. And he told him, go, bring it home, bring it back to the city. And Anar ba v'David kam etzel Negev. So the kid left, and David stood up from the southern part of the field, which is the furthest part of the field. And so he came and he bowed down to Yonatan. Yonatan was still the prince, so he bowed down to him 3 times in some sort of a thank you because he basically saved his life. Told him that he's that he's in danger instead of testing it himself, which will be a little more dangerous. Vayishku ish el re'ehu, and he knew that probably wasn't easy, probably was not simple for Yonatan to execute, and as we saw before, Yonatan was embarrassed by it. Vayishku ish et re'ehu, vayishku ish et re'ehu ad David igdil. So they kissed each other and they cried on each other's shoulders, and David was crying more than Yonatan. The obvious reasons is that he's now he's going to be on the run, fugitive, and Yonatan is going to go back to his father, and we will see the Kabbalistic interpretation of why he was crying more. ויאמר יונתן לדוד, לך לשלום. So Yonatan tells, gives farewell to David and tells him go. Now, if we saw before, when David was sending Yonatan away, he told him lech beshalom, and Yonatan told David lech leshalom, and the end result was that Yonatan died in a war, and David was saved. From that, the Shulchan Aruch is telling us that when you say farewell to someone, you should say lech leshalom, sa b'shalom v'tachzor b'shalom. Go in peace, but you have to use the word with the lamed, leshalom, if you're saying it in Hebrew, because beshalom means the opposite, and this is the language that is being used in Kel Malei Rachamim, v'enor b'shalom, beshalom, with the bet, when someone is resting in peace rather than living in peace. Resting in peace and ain't coming back. Living in peace, hopefully they do. So you have to say, what? Right. So we have to be in Hebrew is just a difference of one word, of one letter. You have to be careful. In other languages, obviously, it's easier. And he promised him, and he reminded him. Yonatan reminds David, "Asher nishbanu shneinu anachnu b'shem Hashem lemor Hashem yeh beni u'bencha ben zari ben zarcha ad olam." Please remember the covenant that we struck between us, the covenant between us and our offsprings and our kids forever. You are not going to, your offsprings, your children are not going to hurt mine. And, just remember that. That's the covenant. That's the deal we struck. I kept my end of the deal. Now it's your turn to keep yours. Okay. So, yes.
Where was the capital at this point?
Pardon?
The capital.
The capital? The capital was in Kiryat Yearim, I believe. At that point, the capital was in Kiryat Yearim. The capital was in Kiryat Yearim, and the ark was in Kiryat Yearim, but the Mishkan was in Nov. So it was Nov. It's a city near Shiloh. We'll see soon. It's not far.
So it's in the north.
No, near Yerushalayim.
North of Shiloh.
Yes, northwest, I think, of Yerushalayim. Nov, I think it's northwest. No, I thought it's northwest. No, it's Nov is. I'll tell you exactly. Okay, so Nov is right above Bethlehem. Okay, and
Bethlehem is south.
Bethlehem is south, but this is. I think it's right north of Tel Aviv, of Yerushalayim. So that's Nov. Anyway. Okay. So all the questions that we mentioned before are being addressed in a very interesting discussion by the Arizal, explaining this whole situation. And he's starting, and then it's being further elaborated on and explained in Chassidut, starting from the Alter Rebbe, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, and almost each one of them mentioned that in one way or another. The reason being is because we read it as an haftarah twice a year, so it's an important subject, and it also fits every Shabbos. Basically, it can fall almost on every Shabbos. Not all of them, but most Shabbatot can, not most, but whatever, a few of them it can happen. So it fits a lot of Shabbatot during the year. The basic rule is that everything physical is a mirror image or an expression of the metaphysical, of the spiritual. There is nothing here. That's the whole look of the Kabbalah. Kabbalah is looking at the world that everything matters, everything is measured, everything is exact, and they're all a mirror image of spirituality, because God created the world by looking at a blueprint. The blueprint was Torah. Torah is a spiritual entity. So everything that's described in the Torah is a spiritual thing, and also a physical manifestation of it. Therefore, especially things that are very, very prominent and important in this world, like wars. A war is something that's not just a physical fight, it's also an expression of spirituality, of things that are happening, some forces that are fighting with each other, in good and evil, spiritual and physical, and the weapons of war are also very exact. There are two primary, at least in those days, two primary types of weapons. Truth of the matter is that they also exist today that way. You have the sword, the spear, the axe, the knife. Those are weapons that meant for hand-to-hand combat, for face-to-face, close proximity. You see the enemy, they're at arm's length, and you fight with them. You fight with them with those weapons. That is one type of weapons. Another type of weapons are the ones that are for enemies that are invisible, far away. You can't look them in the eye. You can't see the white in their eyes, and you need to get them. You can't do it with a sword. For that was invented
The laser gun.
the laser gun. Exactly. For that was invented the arrow, the bow and the arrow. The bow and arrow. Those were for thousands of years. That was the primary way of fighting someone you don't see. I'm sure that all of you have seen.
Catapults didn't exist yet.
All of you have seen. That's a different type of. All of you have seen scenes in movies where the archers are trying to aim over the wall with arrows. So you don't see. There are two types of enemies: the visible one and the invisible ones. In spirituality, in our life, in Torah life, you have two types of enemies. You have the infractions, the sins, the evil that we all know and recognize and understand that it's evil. Stealing, killing, lying, cheating, not being nice, stepping on someone's head, it's hurting someone's property. So all of those are visible, direct sins. Everybody knows their sins. When someone, steals $100, there are no two ways about it, usually. And then you have the invisible sins. The motivations, the motives, the ego, what's in a person's heart. You have many times you have people who look 100% religious. the learning, they're the Rosh Yeshivas, they're the big, important people. But in their heart, the motives are crooked. They want to publish the new book. They want to get the honor. They want to sit and get the next honoree in a dinner. So people, but you don't see it. You think that they're 100% with it, but inside there's struggle. There are challenges. There is this story of a guy, a pauper, didn't have a dime to his name, and was going to his Rebbe, and he was walking, and a very nice-looking wagon stopped next to him, and the guy says, "Where are you going?" I'm going to my Rebbe. Come, I'm going to the same directions. Hop in. The owner of the rider in that wagon was an aristocrat, was a doctor, was dressed well, and he started talking to the guy and said, "I'm a big doctor. I'm also. I cure a lot of people with, very, very. I'm very skilled at what I do. Me too. I'm also. I also volunteer in many in the community. Oh, me too. I also lend people money with no interest. Yeah, me too, and so on and so forth. Everything that the doctor would say, he said, me too, yeah. Finally, the doctor lost it and said, what are you talking about? You're not a doctor. You're just a pauper. You're just a schmo. What are you saying? I said, I'm just like you. I just talk about the good things. Exactly. That's what you do, right? There's nothing wrong. You never did. There is nothing that we can really judge on a person's inside, on a person's motive, on who they are really. We can only see the facade. We can only see what they want us to see. So that is the enemy within, which many times is very, very, very complicated. It's very, very hard to overcome. It's easy to say, what, I'm not, I'm going to stop smoking. Maybe not easy, but it's measured. But I'm going to curb my ego. I'm going to stop being jealous. I don't know how easy that is. Now, in order to fight those enemies, we need weapons. And the weapons are given to us in a form of Torah. Torah is giving us the roadmap. It's the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the cure, the pacifier, the path that we need to the blueprint. Exactly, it's the blueprint to how a Jew how any human being is supposed to act. And there, because we have two types of enemies, you have the enemies that are revealed, and we have the hidden enemies. You also have two types of weapons. We have a sword, and we have a bow and arrow. The sword is the nigle, is the revealed part of Torah, is the halacha, is what you read in the books, most Jewish books, the Gemara, the Mishnah, the Shulchan Aruch. Those are the mitzvot that we have to perform on a regular basis in a revealed way, Shabbos and Tefillin and Yom Tov and everything that all of the mitzvot between man and fellow man, business law, Yom Tov, kashrus, all of those halachot that are very, very exact, very much measured. We all know exactly how many grams do we need, how many milliliters we need to make Kiddush on, and how many minutes we need to, before sundowns, we need to light candles. It's all very measured, very revealed, very exact, very known. And those are the cures for the problems that are known. If someone has a problem with one of the prime sins, So they have a very straightforward halachic way of handling it. And then you have the hidden enemy. All those inner issues, the psyche of the person, the ego, the motivations, all of those problems that we're dealing with when we're alone, when we're not on a show. And for that, we have another weapon, and that is Kabbalah and Chassidut. That's the hidden part of Torah. The hidden part of Torah that for many years was really hidden and was not needed because those things were handled differently. But now we have those problems, those inner problems, are the psychological problems, if you want to call it, are more prominent. So we need a very prominent cure for it. And the cure for it is the hidden part of Torah, is the Kabbalah, Chassidut. When you learn those, over there they're helping us, quantifying when is our ego talking. What is the right motivation when we do a mitzvah? How do we really love? When you cover your eyes and you say Shema Yisrael every day, what do you really think? What you should think, and how you get yourself to think that. Those are all issues that are mentioned at length in Kabbalah, in Chassidut, in the hidden part of Torah. The weapon of bow and arrow has a paradox in it. In order to shoot the arrow further, you have to pull it to your heart first. In order to strike the heart of the enemy, you have to pull the arrow into you as close as possible. The more you pull it towards your heart, the further it goes and reach and does the trick. And this is exactly the way the hidden part of Torah, the Kabbalah and Chassidut, are helping us understand and helping us win the battle with our own challenges, inner challenges. We have to dig deeper into our heart. We have to go in and really examine it and really understand what's our real motivation. And that helps us conquer that problem that is otherwise hidden from everybody else. Now, the same method that we use for horizontal reach, in order to reach the arrow further, we have to pull it in the opposite direction towards ourselves. The same thing there is when we want to reach high. When we want to shoot the arrow high, we have to pull it down towards the ground. Lower in order to get higher. That is the manifestation of the representation of what's called in Kabbalah avodat habirurim, the work of sorting out. The world is obviously not a place where you walk outside and say, oh, here is God, there is God. God is hidden. The good is hidden in this world. There is a lot of garbage, there is a lot of materialism and a lot of material that covers up all of the spirituality, all of the important stuff, and you need to dig. You need to find it, and in order to find it, you need to dig deeper. You need to go down to the muck, to the mud, to the depth of the problem, and figure out what's good and what's bad. It's not so simple. When you look at something, you don't know, is TV good or TV bad? Well, depending what you're watching, is a theater good or a theater bad? Depending what's showing, It's so you have to. It's not simple. You have to go lower in order to reach higher. The king, a Jewish king, their prime task is to lead the Jewish people in the right direction. Their main task in life is to lead avodat birurim, to figure out how we sort things out and how to do it the right way, and to bring us to a point where the world is shining, the Jewish people are shining and able to shine the world, and we're able to prepare the world for the coming of Mashiach. That's the prime job of a king. David and Yonatan, in this hour where they didn't know if his life is in danger or not, their prime concern was, did Saul finish Avodat HaBirurim? Did he do, he is the first king, he is king for about 2 years now, and did he do the right thing? Is he readying the nation for prime time? If we recall, when Saul was inaugurated, he was called Mashiach Hashem. That's what God called him. That's what Shmuel called him. Mashiach Hashem. He is the guy that was capable, that had the potential of being the Mashiach, the ultimate Mashiach. And his job was to just get us over the hump. It was, I guess, a very big hump. But his job was to do it and then eventually reveal himself and lead us to the ultimate redemption, which he failed to do because his method didn't fit the time, didn't fit the people, wasn't right. So his job is to do this, and he's the only one that can know if it's really done right or not. So David and Yonatan are busy figuring out how they're going to ask Saul if Avodat HaBirurim is finished or not. And they will then know what they need to do. If the work is finished, then no problem. David can pack, can come back to the palace. He is not a threat to the king because he has nothing else to contribute. The king is doing the job just fine, and therefore he's not a threat. He's not going to be. You don't need another king. You don't need another leader to take over because Shaul is okay, and therefore he can come back because ultimately nothing will happen to him. Or we still need more there is more work to do. Now, the sign was to use an arrow which you shoot further when David is hidden in the field. The hint was that there is a lot more to do. Do we need the arrow or we don't need the arrow? Is the arrow just collect the arrow and come back to the city because you don't need to use that type of weapon anymore in Avodat HaBirurim, that we're all okay? Or that there is a lot more to do and therefore it's time for you, David, to leave the comfort of the palace, to leave the comfort of being in the capital city. You can't be here anymore. You have to go into a very treacherous, very challenging road and eventually chart your own way and figure out how to get the job done, which is ultimately what happened. And ultimately, David is the one that invented the method by which we do tshuva, we do repentance. Some people did repentance before, Reuven and others. They were working on themselves to do tshuva, but it was not really codified until David came about. David wrote Psalms. When someone is doing tshuva, one of the prime things that we do is we read Tehillim, right? When we pray, Tehillim is a song, but it's a cry, it's a prayer, it's a chant. We all do it every day. Most of our prayer is from Tehillim. He codified the whole idea of tshuva, of how we can sort out our own inner issues, our own inner demons and problems, and the world's. That's what David did. This is something that Shaul was not able to do because he was on on a much higher playing field. He was an elevated person that really didn't have much to do with the muck. David was the youngest. He was thrown out of the house, basically, wasn't respected by his family, was sent away to take care of the sheep. He was down, like in the lower rung of the family. He knew what it means to not have anything. And he is the one that was able, from the ground, from the bottom, from lower, he was able to figure out how to use that weapon, how to use that springboard to jump high and to get further. Rosh Chodesh. The Jews are being called the moon in many writings, in Nigla as well, in Kbala. The Jews are called the moon, God is called the sun, and we are called the moon. Why we call the moon? Because the moon goes through cycles. And when is the cycle starting? On Rosh Chodesh. On Rosh Chodesh, the moon starts growing to signify the ups and downs that we have in our lives, that we have in the Jewish life in general as a nation, and in our individual lives. Right before Rosh Chodesh, there is total darkness. On Erev Rosh Chodesh, there is total darkness. Right? The moon is invisible, totally not there. This is the time to figure out how we're doing with Avodat HaBirurim, how we're doing with dealing with the darkness, how we're doing with dealing with when there is no light shining. And that's the reason this Erev Rosh Chodesh, that was the test. The test, in order to know was Avodat HaBirurim done or not, had to be on Erev Rosh Chodesh, to start on Erev Rosh Chodesh, and then go to the king and see, as the month starts, what's the temperature there? Is it done or not? Is it close to be done? That's why it happened on Erev Rosh Chodesh. Now, that's why it's also connected to almost every Shabbos of the year, because that's the job of all Jews of all time. Avodat HaBirurim. You can read it on any Shabbos, no problem. It fits. It fits the story. You don't need any more connection. That's why we can read it on almost, if it's a week, on Erev Rosh Chodesh, you can read it no matter what the parsha is. There is also the aspect of the arrow is being shot from a bow. A bow in Hebrew you called keshet. Keshet is an arch. What are we playing on Lag BaOmer? With a bow and arrow. Right? The kids are going out and playing with a bow and arrow. Why on Lag BaOmer? Because Lag BaOmer is the party of Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, who revealed that the Kabbalah, who revealed the Zohar, who revealed this weapon, who revealed the spirituality, the spiritual weapon of bow and arrow. He revealed how to use bow and arrow in Jewish life, what we need to go into ourselves, into our heart in order to reach higher. That's his invention. So we use the bow and arrow on his yortzeit to signify that. Now, keshet is also another word in Hebrew that's being used. Keshet be'anan. What is a keshet be'anan? Rainbow. Exactly. The same word that's being used for the bow is being used for the rainbow. Okay? The rainbow, what is the rainbow? We said before, is it what? It's a brit, right? It's a covenant, right? But physically what it is. So the sun, exactly. The sun, we said before, is representation of God. Right? God is shining, that's the sun. There is no matter where you are, the sun is shining the same way, except when there are clouds. When there are clouds, the sun is not revealed. Clouds representing exile, representing problems, representing darkness, when you can't see the sun. So the clouds, then you operate without the sun. You operate in darkness. Sometimes you have a rainbow. And the rainbow is when the cloud themselves refracts the light. Let the light shine through and create something very beautiful, even though there is you actually almost don't see the sun, but the cloud themselves suddenly shine. From the darkness itself, you can create light. And that is what Chassidut and Kabbalah teaching us. They're teaching us that we can go into darkness, we can live in darkness, but there is always a rainbow. There is always the possibility of a rainbow, and that's the covenant, that's the brit, that's what God, signed an agreement with us. He's not going to be affected by the darkness of the world, and therefore, think, let me get rid of the world. The world is dark, the world is evil, people are not dealing with the problems, so who needs this whole mess? Let me get rid of it. No. God signed a deal that He is going to allow us to work things through and to allow us to reveal how the cloud themselves can shine a rainbow. Now, the rainbow is made out of colors, right? There are 3 basic colors. RBG, right? It's
RBG.
What?
Roy G. Biv.
Okay. So there are 3 basic colors. Those are the 3 arrows. The 3 basic colors of the rainbow, says the Arizal, are the 3 arrows that they try. Why 3 arrows? Because you have 3 ways, which we're not going to get into it, partially because I have no idea what I'm talking about. But there are 3 ways that you can use the weapon of the Torat HaNistar of Chassidut in order to elevate yourself, to figure out yourself, to fight the inner problems that we all have, and one of the Yonatan brought with him a lad, a kid, a boy, because the Jewish people are Kinar Israel Vo'aveu. The Jewish people are being called a kid. In order to chart a way for the kid needs to run after the arrows. The kid needs to use the arrows. So he brought the kid. It says in the holy books that the neshama of Yehonatan is ultimately came in the body of Shammai. And the neshama of David came in the body of Hillel and Shammai. Great friends, great love, totally opposite outlook, total opposite outlook of the world. Halacha kebet Hillel. Halacha like David. David is the one that can do it. Yonatan and Shaul, who are represented by Shammai, they're not bad, they're not wrong, they're just not the halacha. It doesn't fit what we need right now. So they're still legitimate point of views, legitimate way of worshiping God, but it's just not for the masses. It doesn't work with the masses. So they had to leave the scene and just not be the leaders anymore. So Hillel and Shammai, David and Yonatan have a great love. That love continued, and we know that when Mashiach comes, the halacha is going to be like Bet Shammai. So this whole way of Saul and Yonatan will be somehow revived and come back and be effective again. But that is the way the Kabbalists are reading our Haftarah, the section that we just finished, which is, it gives a whole different taste to Machar Chodesh. And why would you read that Machar Chodesh and so many times, two, 3 times a year we read it. So that's...
So the Kabbalists are suggesting that if everything was good at a spiritual level, that David will go back, he might not be king.
Exactly. If that was what Shmuel wanted to accomplish. Shmuel was able, had the Jews not press him to anoint a king too early, he would get them to the right spiritual level. There will be only one king, Saul. There will never be King David. Only because we asked too early, and Saul didn't manage to finish Amalek, didn't manage with his method to really finish Avodat HaBirurim, to get it done. We needed the whole Davidic dynasty. We needed this whole the 3,000 years since King David was around, right? Something like that. We need all of that, all of these years to work things out. And we have the 3 Batei Mikdash, 3 arrows. The Jewish people are made out of 3 Kohanim, Levim, and Israelim, 3 arrows. We have 3. This whole theme of 3 is sort of hovering around us in many, many different ways and shapes, and that's. All right. So next time we're gonna wipe out.
Do a lot of this at the Hasidic and coffee.